A new face has now become the second favorite to become the Bears' next head coach, and also Tom Brady up to the same old tricks next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron, and make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. Hit the notification bell too so you don't miss when we go live, and also rate that show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports everywhere that you get your podcast. What's going on? Another episode of giving you an update on what is going around the league with the Bears and an update to the coaching search. Also, I have more details I want to share about the whole Mike Tomlin situation that we talked about yesterday. Tom Brady, like I said, we have to touch base on all that. So let's get right into it, shall we? So first off, the big news from the big guy, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is now, like I said, the second betting favorite. Right now, if you go out there, Mike McCarthy, it goes Ben Johnson is the favorite, and Mike McCarthy currently is the second favorite to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. For those out on YouTube, what do you think of Mike McCarthy? Do you love him? Do you hate him? I saw some shows have him as a very good candidate. I'll say my 2 cents later on. But this is what we're hearing. So basically, the Bears already requested to interview Mike McCarthy. The Dallas Cowboys politely declined, and they said, "Hey, we're going to try and sign Mike McCarthy." When they did that, as Adam Schefter reported, they said they weren't able to get a deal done. Just basically, there were some issues with how long the deal should have been. And then it was reported that the Bears are actually going to interview him on Wednesday. And a key piece to also add in there too, that is the earliest that they can actually bring in Mike McCarthy for an interview, because the window of the negotiation ends midnight on Tuesday. So the Bears very eager to try to get head coach Mike McCarthy in the doors, which is a little bit alarming. So like I said, just they couldn't agree on the length of the contract. And then ultimately now Mike McCarthy going to be able to hit quote unquote coach free agency right now with his deal ending up. So like I said, what do you guys think about Mike McCarthy? Because Mike McCarthy, when you look at the stats, he's not terrible, right? I think that Mike McCarthy, he gets a little dig on him just for the way he looks. I mean, quite frankly, I was just watching some people make fun of it where they're like, he looks like a pork chop. It's like, he really does. But Mike McCarthy, when you see how good his offenses have been, they've always been in kind of the top 10. But with that being said, where does he rank on my list? Well, if you look at the list, I don't rank him that high. And yet again, the people that are out there on YouTube, the ranking that I have, that is not a ranking. It's just a list of the coaches that I just threw out there. Mike McCarthy it's not that he's a bad coach. It kind of strikes me as if they hire him kind of like a John Fox type of hiring, where it's just okay. It's just like McCarthy, he's good. He's a good offensive mind, and I think that he can train Caleb. I just don't love it. I think it's just, it's the thing of when you get a gift and it's just not what it is. Like I remember as a kid, I got a N64 game, and it was I doubt anybody's played this, but if you have, let me know in the comments. It was a game called Iggy's Wrecking Balls that I got as a gift. I think it was from my dad. And I remember getting it because I was like, oh, sweet. Like as a kid, I'm like, this is a video game. This is awesome. But at the same time, I'm like, Dad, this kind of looks like it sucks. This kind of looks like it's a bad game. And when you get something like that, that's how I would feel with Mike McCarthy. You would get a present. He's not bad. Like he's still a video game. He's still not terrible. But when you could potentially get Ben Johnson, or even like what we've talked about, Brian Flores, he has the potential, if things have gone smoothly with the Vikings and you feel he's a good candidate, there's that. There's Pete Carroll. There's Marcus Freeman. There's all these what could happen? But I feel like with Mike McCarthy, you kind of know what is going to happen, right? You're not going to they're not going to cheer for Mike McCarthy and be like, oh man. But hey, You know what? Overall, though, he has 174 and 112, and also 12 winning seasons, 5 losing, and 1 8-8 season. So, hey, like I've said, he's done well. He's not bad. He's not great. It's just it would just be kind of like, okay, well, let's see what we can do, right? Let's see what we can do. It doesn't give me Super Bowl vibes. It gets me good, but maybe not anything amazing type of vibes with it. So that's my feeling with Mike McCarthy. But like I said, let me know what you think. Maybe you're over the moon about Mike McCarthy. Let me know. But also too, speaking of Packers and other things like that, Adam Stenavich is the newest addition to the coaching tracker, the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. And as we look at this too, we also see Thomas Brown interviewed virtually. And yeah, right, Thomas Brown interviewed virtually. Hey, I would probably want to interview virtually too if I know that they're interviewing 16 individual candidates and you're probably not getting the job. So might as well. But the Bears have interviewed a whole bunch of people: Ben Johnson, Drew Petzing, Mike Kafka, Thomas Brown, Pete Carroll, Ron Rivera, Anthony Weaver, Aaron Glenn. And they still need Joe Brady, Arthur Smith, Todd Monken, Cliff Kingsbury, Adam Stenavich, Mike McCarthy this week, David Shaw, Marcus Freeman, Brian Flores. So they still have a lot of people still waiting, but a lot of these coaches are in the playoffs. So because of the playoffs, you have to just wait for them to potentially get eliminated or make the Super Bowl, and then you can interview them there. So, like I said, let me know who you want the Bears to get besides Ben Johnson, because I think everybody wants Ben Johnson. Besides Ben Johnson, who do you want? And also another little tidbit out there too. I saw this out there. Greg Gabriel said this, and I thought it was interesting. The Bears always hire coaches that have Trace Armstrong as their agent. And guess who has Trace Armstrong as their agent? Marcus Freeman, the head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So just wanted to call that out there. Just a little interesting little tidbit out there. But let's also go to the interview details, because we did hear a little bit about the interview details, what goes on in the room. Because I know a lot of people were saying, well, what happens with McCaskey and Kevin Warren, and like, what's kind of the vibe of it? Well, what we know is that they all get together. They're all together as they're in this interview, and then they kind of split it out. And the person who's being interviewed will just talk to Ryan Poles. They'll have one-on-one time. And then also there will be time with McCaskey and Kevin Warren. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. That's when they ask, what do you think of Ryan Poles? Well, that could be a potential question, but more so like, hey, what do you think of it here? Or how do you like the Bears right now? But I think it's just more of a discussion with ownership and have that good relationship with ownership. I think about it when I've interviewed for positions, I've interviewed with their boss as well. And it doesn't mean like, what do you think of this person? It just means like, hey, if anything, like they want to kind of know who you are from a top perspective, and you might get different jobs or you might want to move up as well. So that was something. And I mean, obviously in this position, you're not going to all of a sudden become a GM. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out as George McCaskey, Kevin Warren having that own separate little interview with that candidate. So take that with what you will, but that's ultimately what they're doing out there. And now we have to talk about Tom Brady. Like I said before, going up to his old tricks. This was kind of all the talk today. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you all think about this one, because I'm a little frustrated with this. Like, I'm not angry, but it's just like, you just kind of roll your eyes and you go, typical Tom Brady. So Tom Brady is going to be spending time with Ben Johnson next weekend. And it's because of his job where he is a broadcaster. And broadcasters get to interview people and have the discussions with coaches, with the players. That is what Tom Brady is going to be able to do. And now I've heard some murmurs. Now I'm waiting for like an official word if he's actually going to be able to interview Ben Johnson as an interview for the broadcast, right? They talk about it like, what are you guys looking at this week, right? It just seems like an unfair advantage. And there's been players from the Bears too, when they talk about Tom Brady, like Cole Kmet, saying that Tom's just kind of on the field. He's always somewhere. He just kind of around the team. He just kind of floats around and sees people. I guarantee you Tom's going to talk to him. Like, we all know Tom Brady. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's what Tom's going to be doing out there. That's what kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth, because the Bears cannot talk to Ben Johnson until they can't talk to Ben Johnson until Ben Johnson becomes available, whether it's the Lions are eliminated or Lions make it to the Super Bowl and they can talk during that little bye week. That is the thing that's a little bit frustrating, seems very unfair, especially because it's like, of course, the Bears, it seems like it's just the Bears and the Raiders as the final head coaching openings for Ben Johnson, because the Jags jagsed it up, right? So it really does seem like it's just these two teams in the mix, and Brady kind of has this upper hand. So hopefully he just still loves Caleb Williams, and it overpowers anything that Tom Brady is going to talk to him about or anything like that. Hopefully that is the case. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you think about it. And last but not least, just kind of want to wrap it up with some Mike Tomlin pieces. We talked a lot about that yesterday, just with how a lot of people, even I was listening to ESPN and other stations like that this morning, and some people were saying it's time for Mike Tomlin to leave. Cool, come to the Bears. And now I don't think that they would ever fire Mike Tomlin, because that's just a boneheaded thing to do. But if they do believe, and they've talked to Tomlin, if they do talk to Tomlin and he says, yeah, I think it's right at good mutual parting of ways. He's been with the team for almost 20 years. Mike Tomlin he has a no trade clause. So he needs someone to, wherever he's going to go, he needs to say, hey, yeah, I'll waive this if I go here. And the reason why I also want to bring this up too, is I was looking through this, and Mike Tomlin, because, it's been so long since he was a coaching candidate. The previous stop he had before Pittsburgh was at the Minnesota Vikings, where Kevin Warren was. And Kevin Warren, I didn't grab his exact title. Kevin Warren was at the Vikings the same time that Mike Tomlin was at the Vikings. So maybe they know each other, right? Just because you work at the same building doesn't mean you actually know each other. Hopefully they have some sort of relationship or something like that. But I just thought it was an interesting little nugget that they were both in Minnesota at the same time. And hey, if he wants to go somewhere, I think that Chicago might be a great place. He's already used to the cold of Pittsburgh. And also too, this strikes me as a kind of like, we see this with a lot of different head coaches, like Andy Reid. Andy Reid, we all knew he was a really good head coach at Philly, but it was just time for him to move on. It was time for him to go on to greener pastures. That's what Mike Tomlin did. They said, you know what? That's what I'm hoping that they do with Mike Tomlin. And then also too, we saw that with Sean Payton with the Saints. It wasn't there. They wanted to move on. So we'll see if Mike Tomlin is going to do the same thing, or if any other coach will become available via trade. But hopefully we can still land Ben Johnson. And if you like that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe out there on YouTube, and also download the podcast ever you get it. And if you're listening right now, go out to the front page, rate 5 stars, tell a friend. It helps out the show tremendously. Thank you all so much. Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and